Predatory lending is any type of financing that charges more than 30% APR.
Predatory lending is a plague on Alabama, and I think what makes it so dangerous is that it pretends to be helping people. Payday loans and title loans are a little bit different, but they're both predatory in nature in that they take advantage of people.
They take money, but they give very little back.
My story started about, I want to say about 10 years maybe, when they first came out, payday loans first came out. And at the time, I went in it was Christmas time. Had my stepson with me as well as my son, needed some PlayStations.
A payday loan is when you go into a payday store and you ask for a certain amount of money. Usually you get upsold on that certain amount of money, so you go and asking for $100 and you leave with $300. And the process is you write a post-dated check, typically 2 weeks in advance.
I went in and they said, well, how much you need? I said, well, what do I need? They said, just a blank check, driver's license. I said, okay, I only need $300. Looked at my check stub. We'll let you have $5. Okay, cool, give me $5. I'm like, yay, I'm just dancing, having a good time.
So you go in on this 1st and you write a check for the 14th. And that check is for the loan amount plus interest. In Alabama, you're allowed 17.5% interest on those 2 weeks.
Okay, then after that, my son got ready to go to college. Still had it now. That was $5.80. Well, with the interest, $587.50. Okay, I went to another one, got another $5. Cool, And it just went from there as far as to me borrowing.
So you receive a check, you receive that loan, you deliver the check, you receive cash back. And then in 2 weeks, you have to pay them that money. Now, what we found is people who need $300 on the 1st need that $300 on the 14th as well.
And if you don't have anything in your checking account, what that does is they will still pull it, and then you have an overdraft fee, then you have what insufficient fund fee, then check bounce.
And so folks end up just paying the interest and continuing their loan. So that's when you have people who end up with another monthly expense where they got $300 once and then they're paying $100 a month in order to avoid paying that $300 lump sum, because that $300 lump sum is such a large part of their monthly budget.
I was almost like, I want to say $6,000 to $7,000 in debt, which is payday loan.
And the problem people get into is that, let's say you take out $300. This is how I got involved. I had a client, $300 to fix her car to get to work. Well, her income was such she would never have $300 all at one time. So she went to a payday loan, got $300. When it was due 14 days later, she didn't have the $300. So she went back, paid the $75 interest rate again, and kept doing that over time, where it ended up she had to pay $2,500 on a $300 loan.
I also got a car loan, title loan. That was $2,000.
A title loan is borrowing money, but I'm pawning, if you want to use the pawn shop idea, I'm pawning my title. So I'm giving the lender the title to my vehicle, and I'm borrowing usually more than a payday loan. So a payday loan might be $200, $300, $400, $500. Title loan might be $1,000, might be $1,500. So if I don't make my payment, then they can take my vehicle. Okay, that's the difference. In both cases, the interest rates are extremely high, and the title loan, a lot of people have trouble making their payments back.
My name is Michael Milner, and I'm the Executive Director of the Alabama Asset Building Coalition. The coalition is fighting to stop predatory lending because it's causing havoc across the state, and many people are hurting out there as because of the financial damage that has been done by these stores.
My name is Doug Horst, and I'm the program director for Gateway Financial Freedom. We provide just basic money management counseling, from budgeting to housing counseling, understanding of bankruptcy issues, credit report understanding. Predatory lending, for me, is simply is a loan, but it's a loan that's taking advantage of somebody as opposed to a loan that is a good loan for someone.
You've got people who are poor or living right on the margin, who are one, paycheck away from homelessness. So if something happens, a bump in life's road, your car stops working, you need to replace your heater in your house, or a child gets sick, whatever it may be, then you're desperate to get your hands on some money immediately, and that's what they cater to.
My name is Lonnie Hannon III, and I am an associate professor of sociology and statistics at Tuskegee University. I think the larger effect of predatory lending is not necessarily statewide, but local. And I think that it has a tremendous and salient effect on local communities, specifically communities where there's a substantial amount of low-income residents.
Many of the predatory lenders, you have to look at the intent and the motive for why they say, oh, we're just coming in just to help. And, in your time of crisis and emergency, we want to be able to help you. Well, at 400+%, how much are you really helping those who are in need? Because what you're doing, you're placing the interest rate so high that is never intended for them to ever get out of that cycle of being in debt.
All across the state, we're hearing of instances where people are having problems with these stores. There are over 1,100 payday lending stores across the state, and what we're trying to do is to try to limit the growth of these stores and limit the damage that is being done by these institutions.
People who go in there really are not savvy in understanding financial markets and how much interest rate they're going to pay. They don't really care because they're desperate for the money at that moment in time. They want to walk out with a check. And so they really don't understand what they're getting into and how it could actually drive them further into poverty.
My name is Willisha Washington. I've worked for 3 payday loan companies, and 2 payday loan companies and 1 title loan company.
I was late on the car loan, and she called me, and I was trying to pay.
I was a customer service representative for 2 payday loan companies and 1 title loan company. If you come into a payday loan place to get a loan because you've fallen on hard times, within the next month, you're not going to catch up. So if you come in and you borrow $500 from me, I expect you to pay me $587.50 back in 2 weeks, really, unless you get paid monthly, and then it's expected in a month.
I said, but I'm trying. I said, just give me a little time. She's like, you got 24 hours. It blew my mind.
I always felt guilty seeing that you're lying and you're persuading someone to do something that I didn't fully agree with. I've never done a payday loan or a title loan because I guess I knew the back end of it.
That's when panic set in. I had all these loans, and I'm finna lose my car. Everybody's gonna find out I've got all these loans. My husband's gonna find out because he didn't know I had all these loans. He didn't even know I did the title on the car. And I literally just felt like I was gonna lose my mind.
I think that predatory lending is the result of lax regulatory environments that allows major corporations and businesses to come in and prey on people with limited options?
I started 2 years ago with payday loans, and I actually was paying them back. Actually, I had paid off all of them except for 2 last year, then turned around and got myself back into the same trouble.
Low-income communities tend to be communities of working people who live paycheck to paycheck. And when an emergency arises, medical emergencies, you have a car problem you have to pay off, or another debt comes due, and you need access to money, predatory lenders make sure that they're in a place where they can easily provide that. It's the same reason why you see payday and title loan stores operating 24 hours or advertising easy cash fast, because they want to make sure that they're the first thought in everyone's mind in low-income communities when they need money.
Our average, the clients that have payday loans when they come in, okay, again, going back, less than 25% of our clients, 20 to 25, would actually even have one. But of the ones that have a payday loan, we would, and we don't track this quite this way, so it's kind of best guess experience-wise, but we would guess around 4 or 5, that they would have 4 or 5 payday loans when they walk in our door, those that actually have at least one. And it is extremely rare for us to see a client that has just one payday loan. If they have one, they're going to have more than one.
The companies have their spin, and of course they're going to put a positive spin on what they do, and that would be expected. However, there's not a lot of positivity in 270% APR loans that you provide individuals who are already struggling.
I don't know, it's almost like taking advantage because I have a good that you need, and so I'm going to charge you this ridiculous interest for you to just borrow some money until your next payday, and then on your next payday, I want all of that back and some.
Well, with predatory lending, that is so important to me because I knew of a young woman personally that had 5 children, and she had told me about the story of wanting to get her payday loan paid off. It was only $500, but 5 years later, she was still paying on the same one loan. And so when I was talking to her about paying on the principal, she said, you know, it's amazing that you say that, because when one of the people who were assisting her, and they saw that she was struggling to pay it, she had 5 children, and they were fired as a result of trying to help her to finally pay off that loan.
There has been laws that have been passed, but we are quite surprised that the interest rate is 456% here in Alabama. Certainly, we can come to some agreement on lowering that interest rate. 456% interest? You got to be kidding me.
And there had not been a fight from 2007 until last year, and so there was not a lot going on over the past couple of years, but last year, it's like the bell at the beginning of a boxing ring. We rang the bell and we went up to the State House and we had some legislation to cap the interest rates on these products. We said 456% is too high, 300% is too high. So we went up there with 36% rate cap legislation, and it was a huge fight. We were up there every day. It was consumer groups, religious groups on this side, and the industry on the other side. And we had the numbers, but they had the money. So it was a big fight. We did not get our legislation passed, but we're coming back next year. And if we don't win, we'll be back the next year. So during the legislative session, it's almost everyday work.
We believe that there's a need push for additional consumer protection laws through our legislature, as well as some other types of laws that can be done on a local level.
We've also been pushing for what is recently been implemented by the Alabama State Banking Department of a database. You know, we have instances where lenders are not communicating with each other and borrowers get trapped. You know, people take out a $500 loan, they can't pay it off, and maybe then they even can't afford to pay the interest on it that week. So they go and borrow $100 from another payday lender.
Okay, I owe them $587.50. Okay, I only made $795. Okay, I could get them $87.50. I get the $500 back. Okay, then I got to go over here where I owe them $352. Okay, I ain't got it. I'm gonna give them $52. Okay, I got to go over here where I owe them $250. You know, so when I wind up, I didn't have any money left.
So the higher our poverty rate, the harder it is to recruit businesses into Alabama. Well, we know that predatory lending actually has drives some people into poverty, into bankruptcy, foreclosures, which is a detriment to trying to do economic development. So, and it's, you know, as a compassionate, Alabama's supposedly the most Christian state in the country, to be this Christian, but allow this, what I think is immoral business to exist, it just is contradictory to me, and we need to stop it.
I literally cried because I was so afraid. I felt like I didn't have, they made me feel like there was no way out. You know, either you gonna rob, kill, steal to get this money to pay. And on that money was like $200, $232. That's what I had to come up with. Plus, I think it was like $7 a day being late.
We believe that the payday lenders have found a market out there, a need that needs to be filled. The problem is that they're using the wrong type of product for it, a product that doesn't work for the constituency base in which we serve, the low wealth community.
And I just walked out of the building and started to cry. Because I'm like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna, they're gonna come get my car. And I kept walking until I went down 20th Street here in Birmingham. 20th Street and I think it's like 2nd Avenue. But anyway, it's a building called the Frank Nelson Building.
So I think the biggest thing we need to do is have an alternative that is fair, that is people who invested it know that it's high risk, and you have short-term loans for people that can pay back in an installment, that have very low interest rate. We need more financial education for people.
So anyway, he came out and I told him, he said, okay, Ms. Wilder, first of all, who has the title? You know, who is it? And I told him, he said, okay, is there anybody else getting ready to garnish you? And I gave him all these names. He said, okay, we're gonna start with them first. I said, I don't have any money, I can't pay you. He said, well, the way we're gonna do, we're gonna file Chapter 13. We're gonna save your car. We're gonna save your garnishment of your check. He said, and I get my money first. You don't have to give me anything up front. He said, but what I need you to do is go home, get every paperwork, everything you got, bring it to me. And he said, when they call you, tell them to call me. I walked out of that building. You thought I was on cloud nine. I felt like temptation. I was on cloud nine.
So if we could do those things, regulate the interest rate, installments, provide alternatives, and have an educated customers that come in there that know what the interest rate is and exactly what the fine print is, then that would probably in and of itself put them out of business.
And people would think this is crazy, but when you are trying to hide and you've got a child in college, you've got bills, your husband really not making that kind of money to do what you need to do, and meal tickets and all this stuff here, you will do anything to help your family.
Most of the people that come to see us, almost all of them that come to see us, are very open to our advice because they came here of their own accord. And they scheduled the appointment. It wasn't somebody saying, you've got to go see these people, all right? When we do a class in the community, again, maybe not be quite as many, but still a fairly high majority are there by choice and not because we were invited to come to some group where they're required to be at the group.
It is the most helpless feeling. And I told the story to, like I said, the YWCA once, and the minister before me was going to speak, and he asked me a question. He said, do you mind if I reference this to being a master and slave? And I said, no, because that's exactly what it is. So that's what happened.
We believe that one of Alabama Asset Building Coalition's role is to educate the public and our legislators on the seriousness of the problems. There are thousands of our constituency base hurting out there. Secondly, we need to push for additional consumer protection laws at the state level. That would include reducing the interest rate. It's just too high. In addition, we need to help work with our lending partners to create alternate small dollar lending products. And I will say that the payday lending industry has found a market need, but it's chosen to fill the need with the wrong product for the people that need it the most.